America, a country where freedom was every man's birthright, where a man answered to his conscience, not a royal oath. But over the years, we've traded away that freedom, one war and one government promise at a time. This is the DestroyerCon Show. If you felt that loss, if you noticed that the country is changing into something more controlled and bitter, then you already know why we're here. If you like what we say, please subscribe and share the show. Let's return to a nation conceived in liberty. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the DestroyerCon Show, where we fight to destroy the mainstream consensus and preserve a constitutional, well, somewhat constitutional. I mean, I think that the Constitution doesn't go far enough, but a true sense of liberty, as our founders and those who fought to create this country believed in. We have a pretty interesting story show today. Lots of moving parts going on. And also we're going to get a little bit into just some basic theory because of some stuff that's been going on Twitter. I think a lot of this stems from Venezuela and the bombing of the Iranian nuclear facility last year. The sort of idea that the right's having that we can essentially overcome like a lot of our preconceived notions dating after Iraq and so on against, like, in favor of non-intervention. I think that there's some interesting things to be talked about there, and I think a lot of it has to do with this weird dynamic where a lot of the right-wingers are getting mad at the quote-unquote libertarians or whatever, largely just because of discontent between us and the right. But I would first like to start with just some of our really big issues going on right now, especially this recent. I mean, this just happened today as we're recording this. Minnesota officials at odds with DHS over account of Minneapolis man fatally shot by a Border Patrol agent. It's a pretty shocking video. I don't know if you saw the video, Keller. I mean, I don't even know what's going on there. Just kind of out of nowhere. It seems like they have him in a period of submission, and he's clearly not posing really any threat at this point. And then they proceed to still shoot him anyways. I don't see how that's justifiable. I see them basically using beating his face with what looks to be, I don't know, maybe the back of their gun or something. It's pretty haunting to watch. I don't know how you can really say that this seems to be justified at this point, especially since it doesn't seem like the guy was anything but it just seemed like he was a citizen. I don't even know what's going on. It's just a very odd situation, and honestly, it seems as if a lot of these policies are almost a way of making people not want to support deportation, although I don't think that's actually what's going on. But what do you think about this whole situation, Keller? Have you seen the video and everything?
I haven't seen the full video, but I saw some tweets about the handgun. Apparently, he had a handgun.
Yeah.
AP is saying that he approached him, and then officers violently resisted when they tried to disarm him.
Yeah.
So
okay, so he had a gun at the very least. So that is something.
Yeah, I saw something about. There's a tweet about it. What kind of gun? Again, it was apparently I think it was a SIG.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense why people were saying. I saw on Twitter people were saying that they weren't going to buy a SIG after this. That would make a lot of sense then. Okay.
Loaded gun with 2 additional full magazines.
Yeah, wow. So he was going to shoot him, I guess, huh?
He approached him.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. So he was coming up to him. And then I guess he got shot, but it looked like he got shot after they already had him. So it's a very odd situation. It's kind of like they're going to get a good thing all over again, where it's like, you just don't even know what's going on. It just seems like everything that's going on in Minneapolis is just so insane. You wonder how one city could have gotten so bad, and how this is the city that's in the news all the time, and I can't even imagine what it must be like on the ground like right now. Um, Obviously, Minneapolis is known at this point, it seems, in American history, almost like a modern Montgomery or something like that. I mean, George Floyd
Well,
happened here.
I think Montgomery is
Um,
the modern Montgomery, but
no. I mean, in the sense that, like, in the '60s, like,
oh, okay,
there would
yeah,
be cities where, like, Montgomery and Birmingham and Atlanta, where
Birmingham,
there would just be
Atlanta.
constant protest. Uh, Minneapolis seems to be the modern day version of that, where, I mean, you had George Floyd, now you have Renee Good, now you have this thing. It seems like it's going to be an unending sort of tension between Minneapolis and the federal government. I mean, I I don't know what you can say and what's going to be done, but I know that a lot of stuff I'm doing is working on the courts and everything, and seeing how that's being approached is very, very interesting as well. I think that the thing about like legal art, like a lot of the legal stuff is that it's going to take very long for the answers to come out on what's the actual
Yeah,
consequences of these actions are going to be, and who knows what's going to happen in between now and then. I just saw Nome and Trump are, of course, doubling down in support of the officer, but I think a lot of this just has to do with a lack of professionalism and just a lack of real solutions. Like, I don't think that they know how they're going to get the people out of the country. I think that's a large portion of what this is. And I feel like the answer should be pretty easy, but a lot of the answers are not things I think that people want to actually take a look at, which would be cutting a lot of subsidies and things that direct migration flows. Primarily, our wars abroad. I mean, we hear about these immigrants all the time. They're coming from Venezuela, Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Syria. All these places are places that we've had active military presence. And I think that if you cut the incentives for them to come to America and stay in America, and you improve the incentives for them to go back home, it's hard to say that a lot of these people who don't want to be here and they're causing tension in our streets, and I think it's safe to say that most Americans at this point don't really want them here. I think they should be made to go back. I think that the problem is that the government has no actual answer for how that should be done. Like, I think that they lean too much into this idea that deportation is, by definition, the way to solve the problem with the migration. But it's not really that getting rid of the migrants is just gonna forestall the migration. I mean, Trump's gonna have his hard policies on for now, but when a Democrat comes back into office, it'll probably be the most record migration that we've ever seen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Largely just because the reality is that the government has such a strict control of the border, and they're the ones who decides who gets to come into the country. I think that uh, if we don't cut the incentives, these people will just stay here, and it's going to be impossible once you have what 50 million people is the calculations I've seen for how many illegal immigrants are in the United States. It's going to be impossible to get rid of 50 million people unless they self-deport, and the only way you're going to make them so they self-deport it is through, I think, changing the economic standard. And I think a lot of people think they can get by this, especially since there's not a lot of deportations actually happening. It's like, what, 200,000 or something like that? Which, I mean, I guess is
well,
bigger.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if this is a real figure. I saw this at the last Turning Point meeting. We briefly talked about it,
Yeah.
but apparently, supposedly, we've had like 2.5 million deportations.
I would really question that. I mean,
And I was questioning it because I was like,
yeah.
that doesn't make any sense. But apparently, like a good chunk of that is self deportations, and other ones has been handled through ICE and DHS and stuff. But I don't really believe that number. I don't think it was 2.5 million. Maybe 250,000.
Well,
Because I'm pretty sure that was
it's a claim from the Department of Homeland Security.
Considering that
it
Trump
looks
has
like
had
it
record
looks
low
like
deportation.
people are challenging that number.
Yeah,
I would really question that number. I
I didn't
want
believe it
to
at
see what that
first
is.
too.
Yeah, I don't. I think that just because the DHS says that, it really makes me wonder if that's accurate. Even then, I mean, I guess it's a larger number than we've ever seen in recent times. So I mean, at least you can give the Trump administration that. But I don't know. It's just it seems like the way they're going about it is going to cause more long term political solution for what will likely be a minimal political outcome. Like
Yeah,
like I can't see them getting rid of enough of the immigrants that they would make a difference in the minds of a lot of people. Or what I'm really thinking is that it's going to cause a lot of political tension, and it already is causing a lot of political tension. And
real.
I think people, especially on the right, overemphasize how much of the problem is caused by immigration. I don't think that that means that immigration is not necessarily a problem, but a lot of people on the right currently are basically single issue voters. They think that everything in America has been the problem of immigration, from birth rates down to basically everything. Like it's because nobody has jobs, because the immigrants took them all, and all these foreigners are causing all the problems, and they're all the criminals, which is actually largely not true. Most of America's crime comes from a certain section of the citizen population. But regardless of that, um, they basically have this idea that if we just get rid of all these people, it will make life substantially better. I think there's two issues with that, right? Is that there is actually a large number of immigrants that live in America naturally. And I think that what people have to realize is that there is a distinction between natural and unnatural immigration, in the sense that um like immigration that's derived by the market is people coming here to fill a role that is needed by the society. They come in, they adapt, they often adapt to the language customs and so on and so forth. Uh and they become part of the community. It's and they might keep some of their trappings, like a Polish church and in a Polish neighborhood or something like that. But they largely adapt, and then their grandkids come in to be part of the community. But then there's these unnatural elements that are either here because they're refugees from a conflict, largely that might have been started by us. They just become resistant because of something to do with that. Um, and they have no incentive structure to, because they're not being integrated into the economy. So um, I don't think that really solves the issue. But if you also want to limit natural immigration, the people that are coming here through the market, I mean, the way to do that would be by driving down the cost of wages, which would be by cutting inflation. That's really, again, so much of this is always economics. The reason that people are bringing in all these illegal migrants to serve in the fields in California is because it's way too expensive to hire Americans to do that job. If it wasn't way too expensive to hire Americans to do that job, and if you know anything about the economy, you know that your grandparents, right? They paid $1 for a or like 5 cents for a hamburger, right? You know that the value of the hamburger has remained unchanged, but you pay way more money for that. If the inverse of inflation was what was happening in the American economy, it's easy to believe that the average American could have maybe a job where they're working 5 cents, but 5 cents is worth like a ton, like a lot of money. That's how it used to be. I mean, like the person who was incredibly wealthy in the 1900s. I mean, like if you look at what they would be making comparably now, I mean, like it's a lot. Like one of the things, like I think if you watch, like for instance, It's a Wonderful Life, uh, the old man Potter offers uh, I think I can't remember the main character's name. He offers him a substantial amount of money. It's like $40,000, but if you look at that today, it's like a $400,000 salary. Now, if salaries continued to decrease, but the value of the American currency continued to increase, as was the case in our grandparents' generation, and was what the economy did to make this country great, all Americans would be employed. They would have basically, like, we would have no real worries about this. The inflationary nature of the money supply has caused a need for illegal immigrants. And until you solve that problem, I mean, I think that the economic incentives are going to remain for these people to be here. And I mean, countries do restrict their immigration, and countries that have restricted their immigration, I mean, a lot of them aren't in a substantially better off place than us. I mean, some of them are, I think, like, I think that, like, the crime rates aren't as bad, but I think the crime rates were not as bad before the immigrants came. And again, this is not like an argument for immigration. It's more just an argument that if you want to solve the immigration problems, there's a lot of underlying conditions that beating people to death in streets in Minneapolis aren't going to solve. And so if you don't solve those underlying conditions, you're not solving the problem. You're just going to allow the problem to continue to fester and put Band-Aids to try to mitigate the effects of a problem that will continue to spiral out of control. Do you have anything? I mean, I rambled on a lot there, but do you have anything to say to that, Keller? Do you have any ideas or anything about that?
You're absolutely right. And speaking of like the incentives, I mean, the reason first off, under the Obama administration, we had that influx of these refugees that we all, for some reason, deposited right in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And then because we have all these different kinds of subsidies, from SBA loans to grants for healthcare, the refugees got a little smart and started to commit fraud by setting up, exploiting the subsidies that we gave them, and set up all these, fake learning centers and healthcare homes and, all that jazz. And so if we took all that away, there's no reason to, if we didn't get into wars in the Middle East and in Africa, and if we didn't have all these different subsidies. I mean, I even saw today on Twitter, like, this, we gave like six or so.
If we didn't have a minimum wage, like, if we didn't have a minimum wage, and like, people who were like, and the American currency wasn't being so hyperinflated that, like, companies could build up large amounts of wealth, but pay people salaries, and the American currency is worth a lot. I mean, this is basic economics. I mean, it's, again, this is how our country ran 100 years ago, but we are so far gone from that. And thanks, I think Ryan Turnipseed put it really well in a response to Nick Fuentes, but talking about some of the military stuff. But we're so far gone that people can't imagine a time before we had an inflationary currency. So they don't actually know what an counter-inflationary currency would even look like. It's really quite hard to imagine. And I mean, I guess it's really just because people, I mean, like, it's been 100 years now. I mean, what do we expect? Mm-hmm. But it's just hard to see that, like, how we can convince people to see things a different way. And I think that the reality is that it's probably not going to happen. I think that the only way this is going to fix itself is probably through it collapsing itself, which is, I think, an inevitability. So I don't know. I just think that this is really a lot of what I've been feeling about the last year, is how the Republicans can never actually do anything, and they really are just leftist, and they act like they're not, and it's really quite hard to watch a lot of times. I mean, they run as libertarians. They get elected, and once they are elected, because libertarian ideas are popular, but they're not popular with the political class, they essentially default to bureaucracy, and they run as the Bismarckian progressives that they are. And they go through all these half measures, or they really, what they like to do, and this is what I think is really happening here, going back to Minnesota, Minneapolis, there's a pageantry to it, right? Where they want to show they're doing something. So even if what they're doing is a bad thing, uh, I think that the fact that it looks like they're doing something is red meat for its base, and that's why people defend them. You know, people defend them essentially because they get this red meat to the base from these kind of actions. And I just think that until people realize the game that's being played, which they probably never will, it's essentially just, well, you just have to ride it out. And so it'll keep happening. The right will continue to fall for it again. They will never see that essentially the only way that we're going to actually get through this is by handling the economic issues that we've been putting under the rug forever. But those issues are impossible to remove in their minds because they think they're going to lose voters. But but this is the real thing to me, right? And I want to see what you think about this, Keller. They lose voters anyways with the stupid shit they do. So, like, why the fuck are we even talking about that? You're not going to solve the real problem. It's not because you don't want to lose voters. That's just cope. The real reason you don't want to change the political establishment is because all your friends are in the military-industrial complex and you profit off of this. It's not about what's popular with the people. The people vote for the libertarian ideas. They voted for Trump because he didn't want to start new wars. He wanted to reduce the size and scope of the government. They voted for him in spite of him winning in the Department of Education because they believed it failed. I think that it's remarkable. We've seen this come up again and again and again. And the people have again and again and again asked for a sort of liberty. And the Republicans again and again and again promise it to them. And then they say it's politically unpopular to implement it after that's what they run on. So instead, what's popular is Jeb Bush. You know what Jeb Bush is popular with? Again, the military-industrial complex. That's all it is. So they're not going to solve the economic issues. And until they solve the economic issues, we're going to have people get shot in the streets of Minneapolis because that's all they can do. And, you know, eventually Palantir will be stalking the streets with the Border Patrol agents. And I think that's just it. So, what do you think, Keller?
You're absolutely correct. That's I mean, I think you really nailed it on the head. It all just goes back to it. Well, that's the whole point of politics. This is what happens when we have this democracy, right? It's a popularity contest, and they'll just say and do whatever they need to do to get elected, and then they do the complete opposite of what we're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
And then we're just like, yeah, but it's okay now because, you know.
To me, what's the beauty of it is how every single time it happens, Republicans don't see what's happening, and they just cope by saying the ideas that won them the election are not politically popular. Like, we can't do that. We would lose too many voters. We would lose too many voters by doing things like cutting corruption. You know?
Yeah.
Like, we would lose too many voters by balancing the budget. You know what people like? Well-run government. You know what people don't like? And they're like about to like start civil wars. I don't think it's going to be a civil war anytime soon. But if we continue down this path, like real political tension is going to continue as long as we don't solve the problems of our government and as long as it becomes more authoritarian. And it seems like there's just no way that's going to happen. Like, they're just not going to change that. So
yeah, the voters' base is also just kind of retarded.
Yeah, I mean, the people are retarded. I mean,
democracy, even when they don't implement the things that they want to have implemented, then they just make excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can blame the deep state or, you know, fucking one world government, whatever, the Illuminati and
yeah,
but
but it's a lot simpler.
Actually, I haven't even heard that actually in a very long time. Now we're just coping for Trump.
Yeah,
now it's just Trump knows what he's doing. It used to at least be like, well, Trump's trying to play 4D chess. Q said that, you know, Trump's being held back by the deep state. But, you know, now it's just like. Now they're just like
I love war. Actually, I love war.
Yeah, they're just changing their.
Marco Rubio is my favorite politician.
We go from like no war with Iran, and then like we're like, okay, now we're capturing fucking Maduro, and taking over Greenland, which we're
And
about to get
bombing
to in a second.
Iran. Yeah. Well,
Now we need to deploy the Trump Row doctrine and just
yeah.
take over the entire world. And it's
None
like,
of them
okay,
can
dude,
actually tell you. None of them can actually tell you what the real Monroe Doctrine even was about.
I can't even
And
tell
then
you. I only know
okay, so
what
the
like the
Monroe
schools have
Doctrine,
told me.
yeah, the Monroe Doctrine is not even about like that we control our hemisphere. The idea of the Monroe Doctrine is that America has a policy, and I actually would even still wonder what the merits of it are. I think people say that it's like something that's necessary. I think especially nowadays it's basically irrelevant. But the idea of the Monroe Doctrine was that European powers didn't have a right to recolonize Latin America. Like after a lot of these colonial powers were kicked out, they couldn't set up new colonies in the Americas, and America would preserve the independence of the Latin American countries. That does not mean that if a Latin American country implemented a dictator, it gave America the right to depose them. Now, at the same time, does that mean America didn't do that? No. Does that mean that it was good when we did it? No.
Mhm.
I think that, uh, and especially this democratization, we want to liberate the people. America supports them like so many dictators. It's just quite remarkable to watch. But, uh, you know, it kind of gets into this whole thing we're talking about with the military and how the military industrial complex is kind of just getting what they want. I mean, I think especially now we see that Trump wants to propose a $1.5 trillion defense budget. Um, it just seems like the right will continue to support this absurdity like they did during the Bush administration, and they've just been wound up into it in their cult of personality, and they're going to hand the Democrats the next presidency like it's nothing else. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I want to be on like a Liberty train, but it's really hard for me. Like, I'm like really chomping at the bit for Massey, but I don't know. I mean, it's really hard for me to see what's gonna happen with like us winning, especially if the Republicans continue just to be so bad. I mean, that label can be just a death sentence. Who even knows? It's just really haunting. I mean, yeah. Do you have any words for that, Keller?
A 1.5 trillion. See, again, that goes back to what you said. Like we were supposed to cut this.
Yeah,
We were supposed to not get into
yeah,
wars. We're not
yeah.
supposed to project, our swing our big dick around and across the world. Well, we were supposed to say be America first.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've turned America first into
Well,
America
and you
last.
know it's amazing is how now the whole cope is that this really is America first. Actually, regime change is America first because of something to do with the oil. But I've pointed out the fact that like you can look at like gambling sites, and a lot of times that determines how much value something is held in the minds of the people. And regime change in Venezuela would like make less money than a professional football game in terms of like gambling, meaning that nobody wanted this, nobody cared about this, and yet we do it anyways. And I wonder why we do it anyways outside of for vague political interests. It seems like there's certain lobbies that kind of came together and they wanted this to happen. I think that was likely a lot of those Latin American voters in Florida that are really close to the Trump administration. I mean, obviously, a lot of them were connected to Rubio. I think that there is the China hawks. I think a lot of them were really upset that Venezuela was trading with the East. And I think that there is something to be said that they didn't like the Israel lobby didn't like what he was doing with Hamas and Hezbollah. So I think a lot of powerful international foreign policy lobbies just came together and they all wanted to whack him. But
Yeah, people were saying that it's like we're bringing 2016 back
yeah,
because it's 2026. It's more like 2000.
yeah, no, dude, we're bringing
2000.
2006 back, dude. This is 2006, dude. And it's crazy. What's gonna be crazy is 2028 is gonna be 2008 all over again. No, dude. I think that there's going to be a big economic crash. Dr. Thornton was talking about this recently. Did you see that Saudi Arabia announced that it's resuming construction with a completion date in 2028 for the world's tallest skyscraper?
Oh, they're gonna finish it.
Yeah, the skyscraper curse is going to happen, dude.
Oh, you know what? You know what? It's really good that you brought that up because I just finished editing a couple of days ago. You can get the audiobook from Mises on the Google Play Store. I just finished the audiobook for that.
It's a great
It's
book.
now
It is a great
available.
book.
It's
We should have Dr. Thornton on at some point. We really need to have him on as a guest. But Skyscraper Curse by Dr. Thornton is a great book. But yeah, dude, they're resuming the Jeddah Tower. So, and I've been saying that there's probably going to be an economic crisis in 2028, and the completion date's like around 2028, dude. And that makes perfect sense too, because just think about it. He's going to be leaving office just like Bush after he manipulated the interest rates, just like Bush, to increase his military budget for unnecessary wars, just like Bush, and he's going to leave office, and it's all going to fall apart, just like
we're
Bush.
playing around with Iran.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same thing all over again. And if you can't see it, you don't have eyes to see, dude. I mean, like, this is so crazy how this is happening, and who knows? I mean, maybe it won't happen. I don't want to be a prediction merchant or anything, but I just really have a hard time not just connecting the dots. And every single piece of news seems to be going the way of 2008 all over again. Especially if you understand 2008 from the Austrian view, we were already supposed to have an economic crisis. A lot of people warned about in 2020. And I think COVID inflation really stopped a lot of that. The problem is that the COVID inflation was largely unnatural inflations into the economy, meaning that it just kind of hid the problems. So we're probably going to have a burst still. I wonder what it's going to look like when it finally comes about. But needless to say, a $1.5 trillion military budget is not going to help that. And you have to wonder what the president intends to use that money for. Like, what conflicts are we going to be intervening in with that $1.5 trillion military budget? You don't just have
Greenland.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess we could talk about that now. I mean, just what a monstrosity with Greenland. I mean,
So I actually heard from the Turning Point meeting I went to recently, that Greenland actually has like apparently oil, and electronics minerals for electronics.
yeah, but it's buried under fucking glaciers.
That too, yeah.
I mean, that's the part that they also forget to mention is that all of it is completely inaccessible unless the global warming that they don't even believe in is real.
Real. And
I
it's
mean,
also
they deny global warming in one sentence, and then they're like, "We need to take over Greenland for when the glaciers melt." Like, what are you fucking talking about? I mean,
on top of that,
it's already a NATO ally.
Problem.
Yeah, it's already a NATO ally. We already have a military base here there. We could easily have made a deal at any point for any mineral rights, or our companies could have, to do stuff there. And you know what? None of them want to do business there because it's all under the ice and it's completely worthless right now. There's no.
I wonder if this is.
I mean,
I wonder if this like a byproduct of AI, right? Because like RAM is like super fucking expensive. Because it's being all made in Taiwan, and all the stuff with going on with China and Taiwan is making it even more. Plus the tariffs and all that is making it like RAM upgrades like $900.
Yeah, I mean,
having access to that is, I guess, supposed to make our electronics cheaper, but again, $1.5 trillion military budget.
Well, would make our electronics cheaper. Having a less provocative policy in East Asia that makes us enemies with our largest trading partner. I mean, how stupid can you be to make your largest trading partner your political international rival? I mean, you guys are basically dependent on each other. So you would think that the only thing you could do is work something out, especially when you have the largest ocean in the world between the two of you. But instead, you have to become provocative over a political topic that was essentially dormant for 30 years, which was like Taiwan being invaded. The Chinese were not planning to invade Taiwan. They gave this random 2027 number, and it is basically just pulled out of nowhere. And so, I mean, like, it wasn't even from like Xi's party officials. He's come out multiple times and said there's no plan to do that. It just creates a provocative situation, and I guess that's what we're trying to use it for. But we need these resources for this from Greenland, and we're going to ruin our alliance with the Europeans, I guess. Or I guess they're saying that he got some kind of deal when he was at Davos, and
Yeah, I heard about that a little bit.
and what I saw was that it was essentially a deal where he's going to remove the tariffs, and they give him promises of a deal. So
Concepts of a deal?
yeah, like concepts of a deal. So essentially, we remove all the tariffs, and they do nothing. So I don't even know what's going on there. I literally, it's hard to watch. I literally don't even know what to say a lot of times because we've devolved so much. It's like Biden almost. I mean, it really has become like Biden, where every single week it's like, what are we even talking about here? What except the difference is, at least Biden, you could blame a lot of it because he was so senile on his political advisors. These are just all the things that come out of the president's mind on a whim. But
Yeah.
it's just really shocking to watch. I mean, I think Greenland's interesting. Again, I think the resources thing is completely overblown. I think the idea that it could end NATO would be an interesting prospect, but he's not going to use military force, as he said at Davos. They're not going to sell it to him. And the people of Greenland don't want to join, so even if they did sell it to him, they're not going to vote for it, because Greenland is, like, largely autonomous. Like, the thing that people forget is that Greenland has, like, its own government, is, like, barely part of Denmark. Like, Denmark has really no control over the island, and I think the people like that it's like that. So who knows? They also pay for their health care. I don't think that really matters as much as people make it out to be. I don't really support government like health care to begin with, but there's just it's hard to watch how the Republicans will try to defend these wacky policies that have really no bearing on like solving anything, while all the political solutions that they supported are just completely thrown down the drain. The politicians that said that they were going to in the swamp, drain the swamp, they to protect pedophiles on a like pretty much daily basis now, and instead of trying to create a responsible foreign and domestic policy, we're shooting people on the streets of Minneapolis and failing to basically it's like fighting wars of choice over islands with our own allies. Like, what are we even talking about anymore? And it's just like, if this is red meat to you, you really have to be the lowest common denominator and have no real beliefs. And I'm sorry. I mean, like, some of these people, they really come after the libertarians for standing for what they believe in. But when the next election comes around, you're going to all believe the same thing again. Just like you did last time, just like you did in 2016, just like you did in 2020, just like you did in 2012, and just so on and so forth. I mean, even George Bush ran on a platform of no new wars and no new taxes, cutting the government. And you know what he did? He created the largest government we've ever seen. And you know what Trump's going to do? He's going to create the largest government we've ever seen. And
He's already
created the largest government we've ever seen. And it's just shocking how daft people can be. And people will come here and they'll say, like, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about or whatever. And it's just like, have you not been watching what's been going on? And it's just the natural process of states. They always expand and always grow and always get bigger. And until the empire is basically defeated, we're not going to have a republic at home, and we're just going to continue to lose our liberty. And these people can cope, but and they can call themselves conservatives, but if you're supporting imperialism, if you're supporting America becoming an empire, you support America being the global superpower, maintaining an empire across the world, you are opposed to the founding principles of this country. You're opposed to what this nation was founded upon. You are a progressive. You want to solve the world's problems through the acts of the state, but you are not an American patriot. I mean, you just oppose the very foundational principles of understanding that really shaped this country. So I'm just tired of having to see all this. It's just really hard to watch. And people try to compare it, like say, oh well, we fought wars under Thomas Jefferson, like the Barbary Wars, and people misconstrue what that even is. They say like what, like we were on the ground in Tunis? No, we fought mostly a naval war after people had been taken as slaves on U.S. marked ships, American citizens, and we got the American citizens back. We didn't stay and occupy and try to control Tunis. And you can say that, well, we're not going to stay in Venezuela. If that regime starts to collapse, you don't think we're going to have a military presence there? I mean, at least we're going to be funding rebels like we did in Syria. And I think there's already signs that's starting to fall apart. There's already a divide in the government between the people who are more friendly to the Americans and the people that are more friendly to the Chauvinistas, the generals. The military is largely on the side of the Chauvinistas, which would be opposed to the Americans intervening. And then you have all the gangs. The gangs are starting to really act up. There's become a lot of gang violence, a lot of people dying on the ground in Venezuela, largely because we removed the one thing that gave this current regime legitimacy. And I think this is the folly of keeping the current Venezuelan regime, right? Is that when they keep the current Venezuelan regime, the calculus is, well, it's the regime that's currently standing, so it'll be more stable than if we toppled it and put a new one in. But the problem is, by leaving it standing, there might be a bit more stability to it, but in reality, because it's still a regime implemented by an outside power, especially if it shows signs of being friendly to the Americans by like trading and so on and so forth, it loses the legitimacy of being like something that was coming from the endemic. It's from the originating nation. And with that gone, I don't think that it's very easy to say that the Chauvinistas will be able to maintain power. Because who knows what comes after that. But this is definitely not a story that's done. And I think that our intervention there is going to be the catalyst that creates something, and we don't know what it's going to create. And I think we're watching it slowly but surely unfold. It's really quite hopeless, Keller. I mean, I really do wish we could have been talking about better news. I mean, I wish the administration was trying to do things to actually cut the government, but it's just become such a disaster. All right, do you want to talk about this I Hypocrite article about how we should be killed?
Real. Should libertarians be killed? On one end, yes. Which kind? I would say, just like to sum up my critique of this, is that once again, I think they're building this, these quote unquote conservatives are building a quasi, I will say it's a quasi straw man of what libertarians are and what they believe. I think that article only goes as far as they're talking about like Beltway Libertarian Party libertarians.
No, it quotes Lisa Staley.
I know. I'm saying that the article itself is building that straw man of like how we're all just like retarded, as long as it doesn't hurt me, I don't really give a crap. What's the quip? I just want to defend my weed farm with AK-47s with my gay boyfriend, right? It's that kind of like that's who he's addressing this to, and he's applying that in a general sense. So he's creating a straw man, but it's only sort of true only in the sense because that's not what libertarians are. That it only makes up a very small, well, I guess maybe small sect. I really don't, because I haven't kept up with the Libertarian Party in like years. I blocked everybody on Twitter that's associated with the Libertarian Party, along with the Libertarian Party itself. So I don't really keep up, but like you only see that in the Beltway mainstream libertarian, which really you don't even see that anymore. Maybe it's because my Twitter is full of like you guys, the paleo Misesian libertarians. But I think that the article is really addressed to them. Um, and that's the kind of straw man he has created. He's created this image of we're just like a bunch of guys who want to smoke weed and shoot guns and get gay married, and and that's like no, that's not who we are, what we do. And he's talking about the nap and everything like that. And there's really Joe would be way better to talk about the nap stuff than I am, but like he's only sort of right is because of only in regards to like when you're talking about theory, like utopia. We understand as libertarians with the nap that non-aggression principle, don't fuck with me and I won't fuck with you, to sum it up, is only stands until someone fucks with you. And then you can fuck with them. Um, you know? Um, so he's only right insofar as that. But yeah, the article was kind of stupid.
I don't agree at all with it. I just think first off, it is a straw man. First off, the assumption that by killing libertarians, you prove yourself to be anything more than a bloodthirsty monster is a pretty interesting take. But really, my thought would be that what happens if the libertarians fire back? By
Yeah, that's what
definition,
I'm saying.
them firing back, especially without restrictions on them firing back, demonstrates that actually, yes, the law of the jungle is that people have the right to defend themselves. People often
Yeah,
think that the law of nature is separate from market principles, but fundamentally, market principles
they
are
go hand in
directly
hand.
connected. Yeah, exactly. This is the law of nature. And the law of nature is that individuals, yes, this does not mean that individuals will not try to attack others. But if you want to create a functional cooperative society, you have to function and cooperate with each other. Like, it's not that hard, people. And the way you
Yeah.
do that is by uh, creating a society of liberty. This is the society that created this country. And I think that this idea that, like, first off, him saying that uh, what's the cause of cultural decay? Obviously, it's the Jews, which is like, okay. Um, I don't know if that's actually as clear as these kind of like quote unquote right wing thinkers try to make it to be. Like, of course, the Israel lobby is quite powerful in American politics, but to generalize and say that that's the only thing that's causing these problems, I think, is always a leap. And then, of course, libertarians are the strongest allies of Jews because capitalism is the tool of Jews. But I guess that's, uh, again, discredits the fact that the mechanisms that the quote unquote Jews that these people accuse libertarians of being so closely aligned to, all the mechanisms they use to gain their wealth are state run. I mean, have you ever gone and seen one of those Hasidic communities in New York?
Yeah,
Those
because
people, people seem like hardcore capitalists with their wives on welfare.
exactly.
I mean,
They're not the cause; they just exploit it.
yeah,
Exploit the
exactly.
state for their own benefit.
Exactly. The state has been used time and time again by different political groups. Seniors do this too. This is why boomers get whatever they want. People talk so much about the Jews or whatever, as if they're the biggest lobby in the country. I think there's a level where they might just be more targetable, but the real biggest power player in American politics is like retirees. That's why like nothing can get done. That's why you can never touch Social Security, because the biggest lobby in the United States is for retirees. So people in these positions, and this is also, I think, largely connected to the Israel issue, is that seniors like Israel. I mean, that's just a reality. I think it's true of both Christian seniors and Jewish seniors, and it has changed somewhat, but the fact that those two groups are two of the most powerful, the Israel lobby, the Zionist Jews, and the Zionist Christians that make up that lobby, and the retirees, which are largely intersected with the other side, means that, like, of course, they're going to be able to use the government to implement policies that benefit those two groups. And the people who pay the consequences are the people who are not part of those two groups, because that's how state power works. So again, they always invert what's actually happening because they don't actually understand anything. They think that we need to have mass migration for GDP, or that the libertarians want us all smoking fentanyl in the streets or whatever. No, you don't understand that the government has degraded our society, that all these things are prevalent. The way that you would decrease the prevalence of those things is by creating a society of liberty that the state cannot destroy the currency in. I mean, like this has been a time and time again thing. I mean, there was a time in this country where heroin and all these things were legal. You know what nobody was doing in those times? Heroin and drugs. Meanwhile, in Imperial China, where it was illegal, they had the worst heroin problem in all of history. And was that because it was illegal or because it was legal? No. It was because of the underlying conditions of the society. It was the
Same with prohibition.
Exactly. And so the underlying conditions of the society, aka in Imperial China, that they hyperinflated the currency, that they had been invaded multiple times, that the country was clearly falling apart, and that it didn't seem like there was any future for anybody living in that country. And if you looked at the history, a lot of them seem to be right. People got depressed. People turned to drugs. People turned to crime. All these things go hand in hand. And conservatives love to say that essentially libertarians don't see the real world for what it is. They don't understand might makes right, while they don't understand, like, how incentives work. Like, they don't understand that people largely aren't bullied. Like, if you attack somebody, that makes them resent you. That does not make them just want to do what you want them to do. So, like, this law of the jungle, sure, you can destroy the government of Iraq. Then you lose a lot more Americans than you would have lost if you just never attacked the government of Iraq. And what market interest do we get from it? Really none. I mean, our lives have all gotten worse since the Iraq War. And I guess people are like, well, it was Iraq or... But this has been the trend since really the Spanish-American War. And there's a great article by Garrett that discusses this idea. And one of the things he talks about is this idea that as America continues on, and as we were fighting the Spanish-American War, it was called the conquest of, I think it's the conquest of America by Spain, which is ironic because, you know, America won the Spanish-American War. But what he argues is by fighting this war of imperialism, we adopt the very ideas that were counter to our founding. We abandon our traditions. And I don't know. I mean, like, people want to be trad or whatever. I'm not a trad for some kind of European despotism. I'm an American. I believe in what this country was founded upon. And it's not trad, and it's certainly not American first for you to reject those values. If you reject the values of liberty, and I mean, really, I think a lot of it is historical Protestant ethics that founded this country. I know Catholics can follow historical Protestant ethics, but they do work. I mean, that's all you have to say. This country was built on Protestantism. I think that it demonstrates that as we move away from those things, all these LARPers are like, I'm a Catholic patriot. but I want to create an America where we take over Mexico, and therefore they don't understand the Interstate Commerce Clause, which, if they took over Mexico, there'd be 1,000 more immigrants, and they wouldn't be immigrants, so you couldn't deport them, or whatever. Like, they just don't understand any of the values of this country, and they call themselves traditional. You are not traditional. You are a revisionist, and you should be ashamed of yourself for trying to basically say that you are representative of some kind of movement while trying to destroy the very American heritage that built this nation. And until we can really get the American understanding of what this country is back, these statists are just gonna continue to use their Bismarckian version of conservatism, which they don't even understand is the same conservatism that, I guess some of them might call it based for me saying this, but it's the same conservatism that led to World War I Germany, led to World War II Germany as well, and destroyed that entire nation and destroyed an empire. It's also the same kind of conservatism that destroyed the empire of Great Britain. It's Churchillian almost, in the way that the blustering, even though you are a crippling state that is in massive amounts of debt, it's the vain attempts to project something that no longer exists. And I think as the decades continue on, we make these big threats out of Russia and China, but they don't threaten us, and they don't really intend to threaten us. And making them a threat creates a threat that wasn't there before, of course. But really, it gets us to a point where once America is no longer able to protect itself, it just becomes exposed, and we're actually causing our own downfall. So it's just such a misunderstanding, and they don't understand the laws of the jungle, because the laws of the jungle can be solved by rational reason. This is why humans are the greatest amongst the beasts. This is why God gave us reason, is because we can solve things that other animals cannot solve, like the natural problem of might makes right. And so the laws of nature are on the side of the libertarian. It's just that you have to be like above like 60 IQ to understand it. And so, I just think it's really kind of crazy to watch. People think that this is some kind of epic victory or something. It's just the same slop that the Republicans always try to present as a way of coping with the fact that, once again, they're betraying everything they're supposed to believe because of their cult of personality. So I guess, again, that's another crazy rant. I just knew that was going to go on for a while. But do you have anything to say to that, Keller?
No, you're just absolutely right. Yeah. Speaking of, like, going back to the article, it also, like, it tried to, like, show, like, how retarded we are when, by showing that Mises article. I think, was it by Rothbard?
Yeah, by
Vices
Rothbard.
are not.
It's quoting
Or
Sanders
vices are.
too. It's based on Spooner.
Was it vices shouldn't be illegal? What was the name of the article?
Yeah, vices are not crimes.
Vices are not crimes. Even I actually had listened to it some time ago about Father Mike Schmitz in his Catechism of the Year basically said the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, St. Thomas Aquinas said the same thing.
Like morality can't be just, you cannot achieve utopia by legislating morality.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, like, even like literally, if weed was legalized today in Alabama, I wouldn't be smoking it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not gonna just. The state is not the one tying me around.
And when I was living in Alabama and it was illegal, I was smoking it. So clearly, it didn't do anything on the moral operation there.
It didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is, again, it's such a dumb argument, as if, like, we're not living in a time with the worst drug epidemic in American history, and all these things are illegal. So, like, what are we even talking about here? I know that there's certain cases, like in like the West Coast, where they somewhat legalized them. And really, they decriminalized them. And again, what that means is that usage was legalized, access was legalized, but selling it was not legalized, which means that it was still controlled by the gangs. So take that as you will. Obviously, it did not work well. Which again, I think that a lot of times with like bad legalization policy, and obviously the problem here is that the sellers were going to be the gangs. So of course it was going to fail. You just can't let the Democrats make the policy because they're a bunch of idiots. I mean, that's really it. If Republicans, I think Republicans, the better option to do would be find ways to create policies that would, A, perhaps fix the economy so we can actually like not have to worry about people feeling depressed and overdosing. I mean, we have rising depression and we have rising stress levels, just so much mental health that is going wrong in this country. And I think so much of that is a reaction to real conditions. I think that we live in a state of denial to say that that's not the case. Like,
and I said that. I've said that at the last great debate we had on campus. And I got torched. I got critiqued. I was criticized heavily by my conservative friends. Like,
yeah.
Why did you say that all of our problems is because of the Federal Reserve? I don't think the reason why people are smoking weed is because of the Federal Reserve. And I was like, no, yes, our culture is literally tied to how it's not supposed to be, but it is. To how the Federal Reserve acts.
It influences people's market habits by definition. And I think that there's a level where I think that really people probably would smoke weed without the Federal Reserve. I think that's not like the health epidemic of it or whatever. I think largely it would be probably treated like alcohol, but it probably would not be abused as much. And it probably would not be stinking up places because people could kick you off the subway if you were smoking on the subway. Like, I think a lot of it is more of the fact that like people like always tell me bad stories about, oh, I can smell it here. It's like, you're on public transit. Do you see what the problem there is? like I think
if it was public transit, they would kick them out.
Yeah, if it was private transit, they would kick them out and they wouldn't let them on. Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't be able to afford it. So like, what are we even talking about here? But the argument, of course, and this is the same argument that was made again by Aquinas and by Augustine. It's a very long existing Christian argument that's based in the scholastics. So again, these so-called Catholic conquistadors or whatever don't even know their own religion, just like they don't even know what it means to be American first, showing them to be, again, progressive Bismarckians, which I just love that term. It's just one of those things that it's a great slur to throw at somebody and them have no idea what you're talking about. If you know what I mean. Have you ever had anything like that, Keller? Where it's like it's an insult and they don't even realize how much you're insulting them, but it's a real insult. But it's just like the idea was that essentially that morality cannot be regulated. I mean, people's morality is based on what they believe. People are going to act based on things, and crimes, which are separate from vices, are things that are attacks of violence on other people. You're directly hurting someone else, as opposed to vices, which are things of spiritual aberration that hurt yourself. And there's a difference between voluntarily imposing something bad on yourself versus imposing something bad against somebody else's will. And so therefore, crimes are not vices. So I think you can, read the Rothbard article. We could go into it. I mean, obviously, there's an audio version and you could read it, but, and I'll put a link in the bio to that just so people can actually see that. I think it's a good article. But I just think that these conservatives, they don't really know what they do. I mean, that's really, they really don't know what they're asking for. And they want to go back to 1950, but at the same time, their foreign policy is based largely around the same policies of World War II that the president in 1950, when Eisenhower was leaving office, warned us would destroy this country. And it has largely destroyed this country. So if you want to go back to a country that has real strong Christian values, a revival, a large way of doing that is by improving the conditions of the society, removing the state that presents itself as God, and allowing people to live according to the values that is right for them. And you know, in a liberal society, like a society that is classically liberal, libertarian, people will typically default to Christianity because Christianity promotes community and ideas of responsibility. And I think that removing the need for responsibility, removing people's will for that kind of thing, and encouraging vice, which is a natural result of Keynesianism. It's not surprising that if you look at the life of Keynes the man, who was a pedophile, who don't ask what he ever did in Tunis, you can see these moral aberrations come out. It's not surprising that there's a uptick in promiscuous behavior, not just homosexuality, which people often will like think of this age for, but divorce rates, and infidelity, these weird polycules, all these new sorts of couples, largely
It's just a response because to not being able to afford an apartment or a house, and need like multiple people to help with bills and shit, instead of going back to like the natural family though.
Well, but again, it's just the fact that like, I mean, kids can't work a job, so they don't have any benefit anymore for doing that. I mean, the irony is that if we didn't have child labor laws, we actually probably would have a higher birth rate, right? Because then the kids could be working a job at like a store or something for minimum wage, despite not having a lot of qualifications. I mean, then so people would have more kids. I mean, that's what people did with their farms back in the day, right? The reason that like your grandparents had like 7 brothers is because everybody worked in farms, and farms were one of the few fields that were exempt from the 1930s labor laws. Like if you could work for your family as a child. So what did people do? They had a lot of children. Then you can't do that really anymore. So what do people not do? Have children. So, but you can get taxes for having weird sexual desires or like having multiple people in a house and so on and so forth. So what do? You increase the amount of partners you have. And so it's just, a lot of it is humans are even though a lot of people are very stupid, human behavior, especially as a group and especially on the individual level, is largely rational. People react to their environments. And so again, if the environment is bad, then the people are going to be bad. And I think that until we solve the environmental issues, you're not going to solve any of it. And again, the way you solve the environmental issues is through, for essentially ending the Federal Reserve. I mean, and they can call you crazy for saying that, but it's really, I mean, if you really have a conversation with any of these conservatives and you see how much they've read, here's a newsflash: it's usually nothing. So they don't know what they're talking about, and I really have a hard time taking the opinions of people who just don't know what they're talking about.
It do be like that.
All right, do you have anything else, Keller, that you want to say on that briefly?
Nah, I don't have a rant today myself.
Do you have anything else? Nothing else that you want to just rant about freestyle wise?
I don't have any what grinds my gears. I haven't seen anything retarded enough.
I've seen a lot of
outside of this article.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. That one was pretty bad. I mean, I saw that Dave Smith debate with Michael Knowles. That was kind of funny. I just wish that like it could have been just the two of them, though. I think Kyle Kalinske is an idiot, and he's really loud. And I think Coleman Hughes was good on the panel, but it was just kind of like him being the centrist.
Yeah, I didn't watch it, so
yeah,
like I've pushed away anything related to. I don't know. Is Dave Smith even technically part of the Libertarian Party anymore?
No, he's not Libertarian Party. He just kind of does his own thing. I think that like he's not like the greatest voice of liberty in the world, but he's also not the worst. Like I think it's like people there's there's like the liquid Zulu types, and they want everybody to be a theory bro. And I think that fundamentally, not everybody is a theory bro. But there's two kinds of people that aren't theory bros. There's like these like Yarvanite subversives, and then there's people like Dave Smith that are just like they probably don't understand every single part of the libertarian movement, but like they're on our side. Like we should have like cast out the baby with the bathwater because they don't understand every single point and can get tripped up on like questions that he doesn't know the answer to. There's a clear distinction there. I think some of it's like also especially of Zulu, and this is I think like Joe's problem is like the immigration debate. But I think we covered today, and I've covered in the past, like again, the problem with libertarians that are open border or closed border is that fundamentally the government should not be running the border. So having a position either way is a government policy. So I just can't take that position. And the open border libertarians, I think they might like a lot of it is more of the fact that they think that by saying that we shouldn't we should leave the border open, like a lot of it's more of a reaction to deportation, I feel like a lot of times. And I think that there is something to be said that American deportation policy has been very aggressive. But yeah, I think it's just really crazy to watch. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's a new president in Iraq. That's something new to know. Prime Minister. Or looks like a new candidate for prime minister. I'm trying to see if there's anything on Twitter that'd be worth talking about. I guess the other main thing would be that big snowstorm that's coming through. Are you expecting anything from the snowstorm?
It's just drop in temperatures apparently.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you're gonna get that
like
much.
Down to
Our
Pittsburgh.
area. Our area can get pretty bad though. It looks like we could get upwards of. We're in the gray zone. We could get upwards. It looks like of 12 to 24 inches is what it's saying.
A lot of people are mad that people are like buying up cases of water.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, you're the one who like didn't want to like make them like $5-6 a case. You banned price gouging. And now there's no water to ration out naturally.
Yeah, it's a big problem in certain places. I've heard about this.
It always happens whenever we have a big storm.
I guess that's a good thing we could talk about. It is the price gouging. In a lot of places where it is illegal to price gouge, yeah, they're having the shortages and the prices, of course, are not going up. I'm happy to say that we have water bottles enough to last us tomorrow because I was smart enough to realize that I just wanted them. So I bought them like 2 days ago.
I should have bought a case. Now we're gonna die.
But we also live right across the street from the Safeway, so I'm not really that worried about it. I can't imagine how long it's actually gonna take if something was to happen. But like we're also like next to a hospital and everything, so I can't imagine anything's going to happen. And
yeah,
and the weather is supposed to get warmer here. I think later in the week. So, but really all this economic interventionism is the cause of the problems here in America. I think that we forget that America has largely become a socialist country, and the fact is that we continue to act like it. The irony is that our big opponent is communist China, and largely they have been more capitalist in a lot of ways than us. And it shows. I mean, it seems like their country is rising while we're on the decline. And is there eccentricities with that rise? Is it hyperinflated probably by economic intervention? Yes. But that doesn't change the trends. And I think that's the thing that Americans have to realize. It also doesn't change the fact that that society is doing a lot better off in a lot of ways than we are. I think that the drugs use is not nearly as high. The crime rates are not nearly as high. And I think that it shows. And I think that until America really goes back to what made it the city on the hill, this great democracy, we're not going to be able to go anywhere. And so, I guess that's kind of the ending point. That's been kind of the theme of the episode, is the betrayal of American liberty. I saw something.
Yes, I think that's been the theme for the entire show so far.
Yeah, I mean, it really has been. I mean, that's really been the thing, right? Is that it just feels like we have to come back to this every single week, and it's sad because it's like Trump was supposed to be, in a lot of ways, to a lot of people, real change on this department, and he's just become more of the same, and it makes you wonder, will we ever be able to solve this mess through democratic means? And the more and more we continue to go, I mean, the more and more it seems like that's just not going to happen. And so it's really worrying. There's a lot of bad precedents being set, and it just seems like they're going to continue to spiral into the same traps they always fall into. So, on that note, everything here will continue to be the same. We'll be back for real next Monday. Sorry, we're just trying to get back into a schedule, so that's kind of the problem. And we're both busy right now, so it's just kind of trying to find something. I want to set up some guests coming up in the future, so we can talk about who we want to have on for that. But stay posted. Thank you for the support last episode, and make sure to like and subscribe if you like what we're saying. And also remember to always continue the struggle for liberty. Do you have any last words, Keller?
Make sure you share the podcast. You forgot to mention.
Oh yeah, share it on your mother, share it with your father, share it with.
I shared it with my family. Our last episode.
You shared it last episode. You shared it with your family.
I shared it with my family.
We got like 360 views. It looks like we're starting to get somewhere. We need people to start watching it. So
True.
Keep watching it, everybody. Please share. Everybody. I mean, your nephew's uncle or cousin or whatever. Just everything.
Your gay black cousin's uncle's brother. He has to understand.
Yeah, he has to know. We have to teach him. So teach the children well, as Crosby, Stills, and Nash said. So thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Bye.